Hi everyone, Rachel here from Rachthestamper.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make this really fun card. It has an inlay to it. A couple people asked for a tutorial, and then the inside looks like this. So this uses the stitched stars dies. There are lots of dies here, okay? And then the other one we're going to be using is this one here. So this creates this image. So for this one, I decided to switch it up a bit. Instead of doing the exact same thing, I'm going to be using champagne foil paper instead. This one used gold. And actually, you can do gold embossing on top of one of these if you don't have gold or champagne or whatever color you really want. You can cut out the paper and then dip it in embossing powder and do it that way. So there's lots of different ways to do it. So one other tip I have, if you don't have this double-sided adhesive, you could get another double-sided adhesive, but I also have a viewer who gave a great suggestion. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and we'll actually use that for the inside. Now, a little bit of this I did do some pre-cutting on, so I did already cut out the champagne die, and I did use the double-sided tape on here. So I just poked it out just to make it a little bit easier. So this paper actually uses the Golden Honey DSP, but we're just using the opposite side. And I have a card base in basic black. Then I have a 4 by 5 and a 4 by 5 and a quarter inch Whisper White layer. And then this piece of the Golden Honey DSP is 3 3/4 by 5 inches. Now you will need another Whisper White panel for the inside, but we'll get to that part in a minute. So basically, what you're going to do is we're going to die cut this kind of centered. You just kind of decide where you want to center it. You could use a piece of double-sided tape if you wanted to. Put it on there. Kind of just pick where you think you want it. And then we're going to run this through our die cutting machine. Now, one thing I will suggest is to try to keep the pieces kind of together, because you can use some of these over again if you wanted to. So for example, if you wanted to, you could pull this piece out here, and then you could coat it with whatever color embossing powder you wanted. So I'm going to save the stars specifically. Let's see, put them over here, just in case I want to use those. But what you could do is you could coat this with Versamark, and hold on. Of course, this is a pretty thin piece of paper, and I usually run it back and forth, so twice. So what you could do is you could coat this with Versamark and then heat emboss it with gold, silver, white, black, whatever you wanted to. So you could use this for something else. So it's up to you if you want to keep that. I will suggest one thing. When you're using a very intricate die like this, you can run it through with some cheap wax paper. It will help it release better. But I also find that if you go back and forth with your embossing, it comes out easier. And if you go one time and then flip it over so it's facing up, it also comes out really easy as well. So this is going to be our layer piece. So what we're going to do is I'm going to try to assemble this, that way you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and put these two pieces together for now. Alright, so I'll put that on here. And then this one, I'm just going to kind of put it on the back around the rim, but then I'm also going to add a little bit to the kind of detailed spots just to make sure that it stays. You don't want to get in there too much because it will kind of squish through. So be generous, but not too generous with your adhesive. I'm just going to set this on. Make sure it's, for the most part, mostly centered. Okay, now this piece already has adhesive on the back of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to do this as quickly as I can, only because in case I need to adjust anything. Because this little piece down here, the last time when I assembled it, it kind of got a little wonky. But with the double-sided adhesive already on there, it does make it a little bit easier to fit in. So basically, you're just laying this in to your die cut. Okay, so that's pretty simple. I did notice one little piece here that I missed, but that's okay. So you can take your bone folder if you want and really press it down. But again, this had double-sided adhesive on the other side. So when you do this again, what you can do is you can take your die. So if you wanted to do something different, you could take your die and run it through, and then you could take these pieces and lay them in here in the white. Now what I'm going to do is, instead of doing that, I'm actually going to flip these little pieces over. So I'm just going to look and see where they go before I put adhesive on them. And the only reason I'm flipping them over is because the black, oh, and I did put that on just a little bit crooked. Oh well, too late now. Can't change it now. It's a tiny bit crooked, but that's okay. So the black would almost not really show as much, I think. So I think if you wanted to do the black, you could. You could lay it like that. So you could kind of do either side. But I want it to kind of stick out a little bit, so I'm going to do these white with gold flecks. And then we'll still have the other pieces on the inside. So I just want to make sure I have these lined up before I do it. Okay, so that's pretty simple. So what I'm going to do is, I actually don't want that. I'm going to use my putty tip of my Take Your Pick tool. Let me just get a fresh piece. I'm going to pick it up and just put a tiny bit of glue on the back, not a lot. And then just put this in. And the reason I did these ahead of time, so see, that was a little bit much on the glue front there, because it did kind of, your glue will smear on this foil. So that's why I say try not to put a whole lot on there. You just want a really tiny bit. The other thing you could do if you wanted to is you could put a teeny bit of glue here. I think this one's empty too. Let me grab a new one. Grab an actual new one that I know is new. All right, so we'll put just a teeny bit of glue here. We're going to lay this in like so. Okay. Now, the glue will dry clear. However, if you touch it and kind of smudge it onto the foil, you will see a little bit of, because my other card does have a teeny bit of smudging. But I think the only people that really notice that are the people that put it together, aka us. All right. Okay, so that's pretty much it. And then what I did was I just left the white part. So that's what I was saying. If you wanted to, you could use a different color in the background, because then it would contrast as well. So you could even use a sparkle glimmer paper. But the other thing I did, because I wanted it to be a little bit sparkly, was I took my Wink of Stella pen. Make sure this is wet. And I kind of just went in here and filled this in with a little bit of sparkle. So it had a little sparkle in between. Just like that. So it's sparkly in there. Okay, so one other thing I wanted to share with you. So you do still have all these little gold pieces. This one doesn't have the adhesive back off of it. But you have all these other little gold, not gold, these little pieces that you could put around the card. These have adhesive already on the back. So you could put this somewhere else if you wanted to. These two here, I didn't take the adhesive off of them yet. I think they must have actually come apart on. So you could add those in if you wanted to. But one other thing you can do, so if you don't have adhesive strip, someone gave me this idea and I thought it was a really good idea. So what you're going to do is you're going to take some tear and tape and we're going to just line it up here. And I'm going to kind of keep it, I'm not going to put it terrifically close because we are really only doing the outline of the star for the inside. But I thought this was a really good idea. And I can't believe I didn't think of it. So it doesn't really have to be too close. But if you wanted a really heavy coverage, you certainly could put them closer. Okay, so I have my tear and tape on the back now. Let's see, which star did I use for the inside? Because I only used one, even though it looks like I used two. I think it was this one. Nope, I think it was one down. Hold on, let me look. Yeah, I feel like it was that one. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to line this star up, kind of making sure that I'm pretty much hitting the points here. Okay, so I'm going to put this through the die cut machine. And I'm going to show you as I pull this off what you're going to do. Let me grab a piece of Whisper White for the inside here. Okay, so then you have your piece here. And, oh, you know what? I did have to run it through 2 times. I knew I was doing something silly. I think I actually, now that I think of it, I bet you I did run it through with the other one. Because this one was just a little bit bigger. Yep, I did need to run it through 3. Whoopsie. All right, I'm going to set this on the side. I think that went with this one. I think that's why I had 3, because I used the extra pieces for something else. So what I did was I lined up, basically you don't really need the 3rd one of these because it can be solid. But if you wanted to do, just to get your money's worth out of your paper, you could put 3 of these together. I kind of take my time lining them up. And then I put a piece of purple tape because it's a pretty easy release to hold these together. So let me grab one more little piece of black cardstock. Do that one more time. Sorry about that. Sometimes when I make a card and then I go back, let's see, where do we want it? I go back and I make the card after the fact. I have a hard time remembering exactly what it was that I did with it, because I made this such a long time ago. So since there are 3 layers here, I'm going to keep these just a little bit closer together. That way, if we want to use the other pieces for a different project, they'll already be sticky. And this is 3. One is a little bit wider, so I just want to make sure I kind of get, let me go over a little bit farther. So just an alternative if you don't happen to have double-sided adhesive sheets. That's pretty good. You could do this. So I'm just giving it a press. Okay, and then once again, I'm going to take this, kind of line it up on the back here. Okay. All right, now this is the winner. One more time, I'm going to pull the whole thing out. It will be all together. And then really, so it looks stripy now. So I just kind of keep these layered together so I can use them again if I were to make more of this, which now kind of reminds me why I did that in the first place. So then all you're going to do is just separate your largest die that you want to use. So here's the largest stitch. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to peel the adhesive, or the release paper, I should say, off of the back. And granted, it isn't covering the whole thing, but honestly, you probably don't really need it. You could use take your pick tool with your paper piercer, or your, if you have an older paper piercer, which I do right here. You could use this as well, just to get this off. But I thought this was a pretty cool idea. Now, one other thing, if you're worried about the fact of you're still not going to be able to line it up straight like you need it, what you can do is you can add a little bit of liquid adhesive to the back of this too. And liquid adhesive on top of any type of sticky, so on top of snail, on top of fast fuse, on top of any type of a roller tape adhesive, will allow you to move it. So if you needed to move it, you could just put just a little bit on the back there. So I'm just going to kind of make sure this pretty much looks straight the way I want it. Just kind of eyeballing, lining it up there. And then it looks like you even have a double layer star there, even though you don't. You could use another piece. If you wanted to, you could even take out the center piece here and then lay this in if you felt like it, but it's going to be covered up with the sentiment there. So that's kind of why I didn't do that. So then all you're going to do is you could just heat emboss your sentiment on there and then add that, and add any sentiment that you like on the front as well. So I'm just going to grab my adhesive and put this on the inside of the card. And I'm going to leave this one. That way, if I wanted to, I could add this for any. So if you have a child that's done like something great with a achievement in school or sports, you could do this. That would be great. Superstar of some sort. And again, I just have those little extra stars. And as a matter of fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two, which I do have. Again, I still have the backing on here. So usually, oh, there it is. That's even easier. I'm just going to pop this on here. I have one more. So you could put these on the front. You could save them for the inside, whatever you want, and then just add your sentiment across there. So really easy. And again, this one I ended up doing with Whisper white paper, but I just added a whole bunch of Wink of Stella, if you can see there, really sparkly. So you could totally do that too, if you wanted to these little pieces that have the gold in there as well. Because if you add that to them, it really gives them enough of a sparkle that it almost looks like glimmer paper. So I really love the Wink of Stella pen because you can add a whole lot of something with really very, very minimal effort. That's why I love this pen. It's very easy to use. And it doesn't ever seem to run out because I have some pens. I think I've had them as long as we've carried Wink of Stella. So it gives a nice sparkly effect to your card. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you again to Patricia for asking for it. I really appreciate it because sometimes if you haven't seen something and you've been waiting for it, please don't hesitate to ask. Sometimes I just forget that people asked for me to show it. So again, another great idea. Thank you to who sent me the inspiration to use the tear and tape on the back. That's a wonderful idea if you don't have an adhesive sheet. This adhesive sheet we no longer carry. But I usually have lots of alternatives, and I'll make sure that I link to them in the blog post. And if you don't know where my blog is, you can find me at Rachthestamper.com. So I'll have the links. There's usually an Amazon link that I'll add for the adhesive sheets. Or again, you could just use tear and tape. That was pretty easy, and most of us already have that on hand. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions about anything that I've done today, please feel free to send me an email at rachthestamper@gmail.com, or you can leave me a comment here on YouTube. I appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thanks so much for watching.